doing, or how is this group of students, or how is the state doing against those things? That's not what this is able to do or intended to do.
That's right.
Okay. I just want to get, anyway, that's it.
If I may, I think that's a very good question because that's really the essence of our committee's charge, is how are we measuring outcomes? So is the reason that we don't have that in the parent portal, are we talking now, Tom, about the parent portal or in
Well, I'm
CT sets
talking
at
both.
writ large? Right.
I'm talking
Okay.
writ large. I'm talking both because, like, again, that the progress, and I know from experience as my student has an IP and I'm in the system, but like his progress, whether he mastered or whatever on an objective or a goal, is found in that document, but it's not a place where you would pull it, nor does it make sense. But that's a different part to pull it out of my student's record and kind of put it together with, like, 5 out of the 10 goals and objectives are hit mastered or whatever way we would measure it is just anyway. Yeah, that's why I brought it up, Tina, because it's been part of the conversation and part of this whole thing.
Yes, it is. And so we're not doing that now. And is that because the Department of Ed or whoever is that because it doesn't make sense to put it where the parent can access it on a regular basis for some real substantive reason? Is it because we don't have that standardized form and therefore we really don't have a way to standardize it across all of CT sets? Like, is it something we should be doing? Does it make any sense to do it? Um, you know, if I were a parent, I'd sort of want to be looking at that, but maybe it doesn't make sense for some other legitimate policy reason.
Yeah, so Rep Corpus, just to clarify, the parent does receive those documents for their student, and it's across the system, the same format and the same forms
Oh,
based on
good,
their individual goals and objectives.
good.
What Tom is saying, as a state, we don't aggregate the 94,000 progress reports times 4 progress reports a year at the state level to analyze those data. And so that's what we do not have in place in CT SEDS. But the PPTs determine, does this student require 4 progress reports, 5? Some students have up to 8. The team determines what the rate of progress reporting is to the parent, and then the parent receives those. And then if the parent doesn't receive those in a timely manner, which we do get complaints about at the state level, we investigate that, and there's outcomes that are generated from those investigations. But proactively, it is in the system, and parents do have access to the progress reports.
That sounds very reasonable. That sounds good. So right now in the parent portal, is that where they get posted? If the PPT says you're going to hear from us 5 times a year on your child's progress on these specific goals for him or her, can the parent go into the parent portal and see, January's, March's, whatever?
Yes. So as
Okay.
they're finalized, if they're finalized in January, because that was a reporting period designated by the district or school or PPT, then as soon as it's finalized, that progress report is sent to the portal. The parents receive a notification, and then their login credentials to access. And then those would stay there. So they would see January's, they would see November's, they would see the previous ones.
Okay, and so we're not rolling all of those up into one statewide grade for how far along we are. Are we rolling it up at the district level? I guess you don't know. Districts might be doing that, but they
Yeah,
might
these
report
are
their
yeah,
themselves.
because these goals are personalized to wherever the student is and what their individual needs are. The idea is to serve the student and help accelerate their growth to functioning on the state standards. So special education students are assessed on our state assessments like all students are, right? So when we want consistent sort of comparable metrics on how kids are doing academically or whatever, one measure we have is our state assessments, that in 3 through 8 and 11, we have our state assessments. For a small percentage of students with significant cognitive disabilities, we have an alternate assessment, but that's also on the grade level standards. In K through 3, we have our universal literacy screeners that are given to all students. And starting end of this year, we're beginning to collect that data, something we didn't have. So in grades K through 3, we'll be able to actually say, publicly report how our kids doing, including special education students in those early grades. So we have consistent measures. We report graduation rates for students with disabilities. We report post-secondary college entrance rates. We report we even report earnings, and we report all the metrics we report for regular ed students, we report for special ed students. They're not, so we have a ton of outcome measures. I think in when you get to an individual IEP and a plan for a kid, it is very customized and very sort of focused. So that's why they're not the same for each kid,
Right.
obviously. So we don't just roll them up into an aggregate measure.
Thank you for explaining that. I think I asked the question the wrong way. We could roll it up in one way, which is for child A, getting to 80% means one thing. For child B, getting to 80% of their goals means another thing. But how many kids are getting to their individual goals at a level of 80 or 90 or 100%? That's more what I am asking. And we probably don't do that. And maybe that's the subject matter of this subgroup. Because we don't have a sense of how far of in each of those individual IEPs, how well are we doing for that child based on their own individual goals? And I think that's part of our work. But anyway, at the risk of a button pressing and me getting kicked off into, sorry, I'm just kidding. Please go ahead. Thank you for listening.
Quit meeting.
Thanks.
I just wanted to, before we jump back in, to state that many of these functions and features in the system, there were growing pains, which we are all aware of through rollout. So, Tom, you mentioned the sync with, the student information system at the local level. That took time, and that took, that this is where we're reporting on where we are now in 2025. But many of these features we've had to work, with PCG and or others to ensure that they are in place and based on feedback from the field. This leads into some of the ways we've gathered that information to be able to improve, and we're looking to continuously improve our system. It's not perfect when you have a statewide system, so we're working towards that continuous improvement, and then prioritizing where we see, those biggest kind of leverage points, not only for the educators but also for families. And so we have set up a variety of statewide listening sessions. Kim and I went out during the rollout and received feedback from each of the regions. And this was like right when the rollout happened, and there was, some significant concerns about some of the glitches with the system in when initial rollout. PCG distributes surveys on a regular basis, and we have some data to show you on that. And then we also distribute what's called pulse surveys, which are quick check-ins with the field to get a sense of how the system is working for them and suggested areas for improvement. And then we also can share or have shared just we have had third-party reviews, and Nate Levinson, who's done some work with some of our districts as well, but also at the state level in called New Solutions K-12, did a comprehensive review as a third-party neutral coming in to gather information from districts and to put forth recommendations. So the next few slides talk about that. I won't go through each in depth, but this may generate some additional questions. The last survey that PCG did was just a couple of months ago in December 2025. You can see the number of respondents there and the percentages with the overall average ranking of 3 out of 5. Obviously, we want a system that's 5 out of 5, and so gathering this information is helpful and critical to us. But we also know, as I mentioned before, that process-based systems are more complex than completing a form. And we want more than that, for our students and families and districts as well. So there are some quotes here that were collected over this last. It's a mix of positive and some suggestions, and you can see kind of the feedback around the improvement and the training that's happened. The help desk, I have a slide just to show you with the help desk. We've invested quite a bit of time and resources in partnering with the RESC Alliance to provide support for our districts. In addition to the help desk that we stood up, the PCG, which is the third-party vendor, also has a help desk that's access for any type of technical issues that are related to the system. And so I think the field, appreciates that support. This particular concern around the multidisciplinary report we've addressed. So seeing these pieces of feedback, and Amy can attest to this, that this was brought up in our weekly meetings with Concase around concerns around if a parent's not attending at a meeting, that needs to be resolved. So we work with PCG to prioritize those issues that we're receiving to continue those improvements. This is another one I wanted to highlight, in that I mentioned a multi-factor authentication when you go in. Just like if you go into your bank account or any other system, there's a multi-factor verification to ensure that the user is who they say they are going in. The system would time out for teachers in a very short time frame and period, causing multiple multi-factor authentications. And so we received that feedback and adjusted that, and the field will be seeing differences in that, where they'll be initially provided that prompt to do that, and then they'll be able to work in the system, and not have to worry about redoing that and losing time to that issue. So just a couple more, we won't go through all of these, but I thought it might be helpful as we share this, some direct quotes from the most recent survey. There are some folks who are saying that they've had very little training or no training. And so we did see that also when Kim and I went out and heard from the field. We'd be sitting, in a room with educators, and one educator had received a significant amount of training and the one sitting next to may not have. And so we're continuously ensuring that people are aware of our support and options for training. We also know that it's difficult to find time to train and onboard folks when we want to be providing services for students. So there is a balance there. This is the survey that we do twice a year. You can see here we just did, and we have roughly the same amount of respondents that PCG had, cross between APSEPs and our public school respondents. And so we are just in the process of analyzing these data and seeing where the improvements have been recognized by the field, as well as suggested areas of improvement. I spoke already about the resources that we provide, so I won't go into too much depth on that, but we do have coordinated IEP quality training, as well as CT SEDS onboarding and writing goals that are measurable and meaningful for students, which are highly sought out and highly attended. And we'll continue to support our district's needs in that context. This is a breakdown of the CSDE or CT SEDS and RESC Alliance help desk versus the PCG center, and the different content that we address when issues arise from our users. And then also wanted to share, and this was something that happened pretty close to rollout. Amy can correct me, but I think it might have been either 6 months in or, maybe even just prior to the first year of implementation. The field had asked us to build a searchable database, a searchable resource in the system where you could type in an issue and receive information on how to work through that process. So it's like a Google within the system, and it pulls from our guidance documents and guides in the system to help a person navigate. So if you have a special education referral and type that into the system, the information will generate to help you navigate through that process. these are the topics that come up with the article reviews in that search. It's called Zendesk article, but it's really a kind of a Google search within.
I'll just clarify one thing there, that it's not, this search engine isn't housed in CTSEDS, it's housed separately from CTSEDS, that users can access, but it's not within CTSEDS itself. So
Yeah.
it's within theirs, it's called
It's a
Zendesk.
link within. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know database metrics. Is that a lot of are we to interpret that an article view means someone doesn't know how to do something? Is that high or low? Does that indicate a lot of question marks about how to use this, or is that considered low for by database standards based on our number of users?
A good question. I mean, we review these data on a monthly basis with PCG, as they're able to generate that. So, based on the number of users in our system, Kim, which is 49,000-ish.
Yeah, and I think if we ask PCG in terms of with their other clients, like how does this compare?
Yeah.
We can probably get a better analysis of that, because I can't confidently say that that's a lot or a little bit.
Yeah, and we I want to say 3 years ago we sent out a survey that said basically how helpful is this? It there was a cost to doing this, obviously. So if we see this as not a valuable use, we would try to shift to something different. But obviously 20 views per day means that some people are using it regularly. And I think if we had asked Amy or directors, it's probably not the go-to way to get information, but it is helpful to gather information. So as an onboarding, it's part of a variety of ways to access information about a system.
I know
I think
Amy,
also
yeah.
you have to take into consideration that your typical user doesn't actually access it very frequently, right? So a lot of this
Great
may
point.
be, I haven't done this in a while. Let me just refresh myself. So I think that is a consideration. Like, unlike like directors are probably using it every day, but I have some teachers that only have 10 kids that may be only accessing it in May, and you forget a little bit, right? So I think all relative, I would say this is not a lot of people accessing it, based on the number of users we have, would be my personal opinion.
Seems like it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for the questions.
Brian, I'm sorry, just a sort of a separate question.
Sure.
When you showed the ratings, that there's 2 surveys you did, and there were the star ratings and the 5 point whatever out of 10. Yeah, these things. Was that the first survey? Because of course, over time, it'd be interesting to see where we're at over time. Like 5 sort of, it's like middle of the road. I mean, everyone rates stuff every day, right? And like depending on what system you're in, if you're not a 4 or 5, then you're doing terrible. Or if you're, but so like where does 5, like were we at 3 at the beginning and now we're at 5 and we're making some progress, or are we kind of hovering around this 5 rating? So it's sort of just I don't know how long it's been going on and what's the kind of the trend of it. Because as we're looking at, I mean, the reason this got put in this bucket for the Bergen Commission to look at is concerns about the system, right? Obviously. So I'm just curious to see what that trend is. Are we trending up
First,
or not?
we are trending up. I will say that. But the first time we distributed the Pulse survey, was, I can't remember the exact date, but the rating was a 4.17 overall average rating. And let me just check the date.
Number of respondents too is important. Yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead, Kim.
it was
Might have been lower.
November
It was
of
higher.
23
Yeah.
was when we first distributed it. And actually we had in that review almost 17,000 respondents.
Whoa.
I mean, sorry, 1,700. Sorry.
Oh, okay. That's
1,700, not 17,000.
Still a lot, but that's
1,700.
okay.
Still a lot more. But then, and it was a 4.17 overall. I'm just looking at it on my computer. And then and then this time we had only 722. So, and even in the June, I think it's also, you know, at the end of the year,
A year is
it's
tough. Yeah.
it's the
Yeah,
timeliness of it. There's a lot of
yeah.
factors,
Yeah,
right?
there's
that
a lot
go
of
into
factors. I
play.
just comparing year to year, just a just sense, you know, like, okay, we're kind of making progress in the positive direction. It's not going, and I would expect that over time. They're getting more training and more experience and more knowledge of it. So you would expect it to go up just because people
What
get
could
more
be
experience
helpful,
with it.
Tom, I think,
Yeah.
is, you know, when we analyze these, you know, we understand too that there's survey fatigue. So
For sure.
doing the same survey twice a year
Yes.
is probably annoying to
Right.
the
Right.
users
You
a
just
little
asked me
bit.
10 minutes ago. I haven't even logged in since then, right? No,
Yeah.
but seriously, I mean, to Amy's
So,
point, they might not log in once a year, and you're asking them twice a
yeah.
year how it's going. Like, come
But
on,
this is
you know?
another one where you
Yeah.
want like an 8 or a 10, right? So we know that the users are frustrated in
Right.
some ways. And,
Right.
you know, typically if those that are happy with the system may not be filling out the survey, we have
Yeah.
a range from 1 to 10, like where
Right.
some people are saying it's a 10 and some are a
Right.
1. So
Mm.
the average overall rating, you know, needs to be
Yeah.
interpreted like you're saying, along with how like each in our earlier surveys we've cut it down a little bit to try to make it quick to just like get
Sure.
back the increase the responses, but we were able to see by module which modules were more challenging than others. And so we were
Cool.
able to look at that, like people were like, progress reporting is very complicated, I can't figure it out, what's going on, and we had very low ratings. And so that helps us to generate, you know, more training or information in a specific module. But yeah, so I think your question is great, but we try to do this twice a year, one in the beginning of the year and one at the end of the year to see if there are improvements. And then, you know, we've been working with PCG on some pretty like major aspects of how the system operates at the aggregate level, because systems are so complicated in Connecticut. Amy has students that are in her own district. She has students in charter schools. She has students in magnet schools. She has students in all these different locations. So as she's reviewing reports and information, she wants aggregate reports, not just students like in her particular district. So those are things that underlying, you know, have been taking up time from the vendor perspective. But there are small improvements like the signature that I mentioned, or some of those other pieces that we have been able to turn around to improve. And I think the New Case Solutions survey does, their review, if you have a chance to look at that document, summarizes all that nicely and kind of highlights the top 10 areas from the user perspective that are causing the pain points and recommendations on what to do moving forward. There are some things that CSDE are holding firm with, and you know, in the quality aspect, that we're ensuring that, you know, that processes are, you know, legally sound and individualized. But that also takes more time for a practitioner. So it's that kind of it's that balance. But our last slide here, and then we can open up for more questions, is that there is legislation that was passed as well, effective July 1, where the commissioner was tasked with that report. And Ajit mentioned it earlier as we were kicking this off, is that PCG has produced a report for you all and for the legislature, and which describes every single data point from the student's name, grade, to all the way through, you know, specific IEP documentation that's required. And it's a little over 1,100 pages and 1,100 data points that are explained, and the tie back to the requirement of why it's being collected in the system. And so I think that will be helpful as well. But it's
Just to,
it's definitely not an easy read.
yeah, and just to mention, it's the task was every data element. So this is
Yeah.
literally every data element. So there
Yes.
is a field for a time. The time
Mhm.
has AM, PM. That's documented.
Yeah.
There are numerous dates in the system. You know, start date, end date, the referral date,
Mhm.
determination date, whatever. There's like a ton of different dates. Every date is listed. So it goes through. It's super thorough to fulfill this legislative requirement.
We're happy to share this deck with you all afterwards, as well as the reports that we referred to here. And then, obviously, if there's additional data that we can provide that would be helpful, we're absolutely able to do that as well.
So just on that new solutions thing, because 1,100 pages is absurd to think anyone's going to read it, but like, is there a summary version of the, like, not counting the AM PM fields that, like, we don't really care about, like, you know what I mean, like some sort of shortened version of that, executive summary version of that, or something that, you know, someone might actually be able to absorb?
So just to be clear, the new solutions is different from this. The data
Okay, whatever you were
element
just
that-
referring to, I might refer to
Okay.
the wrong thing. Whatever the system, the thing, the report. Yeah, you're right. You're right. New solutions. All these
That was
names,
the feedback.
all these
one,
names.
yep.
Yeah, that was a feedback one. My bad. But this big giant thing with all the fields, right? Because this is our responsibility right now under this meeting that we're talking about today, and this Bergen Commission thing, is around accessibility, usability, and whatnot, and that certainly speaks to that, right? These million fields. So I guess my question, yeah, some of them are outcomes. Talk about outcomes. Certainly, I don't think many people are going to care what the AM PM field, and we don't need to read a half a page about an AM PM field, or all those that. So the ones that are actually more relevant, right, to this sort of work, is there some sort of summary version or a highlighted version or something that we could access? Because, okay, I'm just thinking, I can't imagine many people reading 1,100 pages of stuff, and you're going to end up reading not a lot of it, but okay.
How is
Thanks.
that report funneling back to the legislature? Is it posted somewhere?
Once it's going through approval, once it's finished, it'll be transmitted to the legislature as it, like all other reports, there's a transmittal process. And then I expect it will be posted online somewhere. Sorry,
It is
Liz.
organized. It is organized by process. So there may
Yeah.
be specific processes that you focus on, like special education is all condensed into one section. Then there's another
Gifted and
section on
talented.
gifted and talented. So it is organized by process, if that helps.
How many person hours would you say it took to compile that?
We had to pay for it because we
Was-
had to actually pay our vendor to do it.
Yeah.
It was an extra cost for us to actually document every data element in the system.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have the exact hours, but it was a major. We could probably get that from PCG, Kim. I'm thinking if we ask Jim, he might have documentation on the number of hours.
I can follow up and ask.
Yeah.
I think that I don't want to spitball on this, but we should highlight that and carry that tome around and show it to people when we're drafting legislation about documenting things and doing studies, because that's a huge amount of work.
That's where my mind was too. Rep Corpus. I was like, was that the intent of those lines in the legislation? Maybe not quite exactly. Like, we're trying to get at something, certainly through that process, but I'm not sure anybody anticipated that sort of a effort and deep dive into it.
I'm sure it has a lot of
Anyway.
value. It's just
I'm sure it does.
20 rule, you know?
Exactly. You want it manageable
okay.
and useful. Yeah.
Well, I think we have to work with the legislation that was given, which basically says the purpose of each field in the data system, how the data and information in each field is used, and how it relates to student. I mean, so it's essentially talking us to go through, unfortunately, every field in the system. So we tried explaining that in those discussions. So yeah, I think what we're hopefully trying to show in this discussion here is that we are paying attention to usability and user feedback and trying to make improvements to the system. You know, through those pulse surveys, feedback, external reviews, etc. But ultimately, I think one other thing that I will mention also is, like, this is a vendor product that we have purchased, and we're customizing to Connecticut's needs. PCG calls this product EdPlan, which they sell to a few other states as well as their special ed system, but each version will look a little different. So essentially, we're working with a canned product. It's like, if you wanted Microsoft Word or whatever to try to do certain things, and you paid Microsoft to try to like customize it for you. So we're paying for like the core product, but we're also paying to have it customized to sort of fit our Connecticut IEP process and needs. So that's essentially what the effort entails. So. All right, so we'll follow up by sending the deck and the other report that Brian mentioned, so everybody has a copy of that. And maybe if there's any summaries of the Pulse surveys, we can add that in as well, so you could kind of see like feedback that we have received on this, and then we can continue at our next session, March 31st, where we're talking peer review, and Brian and I will have to huddle on that one, and we may have more time for discussion in that one too. But I appreciate the questions, folks who asked. I know, Liz, you were starting to maybe ask a question. I don't know. I felt like you were trying to ask a question, but you're good. I don't know. Okay. Sorry.
Ajit, if I might, just real quick. So
Yeah.
so the next one's on peer review. I don't know if we have future meetings scheduled. I can't even keep track of like
We haven't
one
scheduled.
thing. There's like a million. I just
We
know
did
for
the
me and
3 deep dives.
yeah, right. 3 deep dives. We're going to do the 3 deep dives, and then after the deep dives, we're going to, I imagine, circle back to the
Yes.
each
very
one
much
of the
so.
ones and kind of dig into each one and try to do what we're supposed to be doing on these things.
Correct.
Okay, cool. I just wanted that refresher because it gets a lot and too many meetings and subcommittees and subgroups get confusing. So that's helpful. And then yeah, to the extent we can put those on the calendar earlier, obviously I think helps most people if we can put some of those on the calendar earlier, the next ones in April and stuff. So
Sure.
it's awesome.
And
Thanks,
does
guys.
this time slot work for it seems like it's a good time slot, so maybe we can just continue with this sort of whatever this is, the third Tuesday or whatever of the month, and then from 1 to 2, and we could Rep Corpus, you and I can kind of connect after and just kind of figure out like those slots. I don't know if we need monthly meetings after this, or maybe we need some subcommittees, but we could kind of try to figure some of that plan out.
Ajit and I are regrouping after the third deep dive. We talked about that this morning, and but maybe we ought to put things on the calendar, and then if we think we need to peel back a few, we can do it that way so that people can plan. But the ball's in our court on that.
Yep.
This was an
Thanks.
excellent presentation today. Thank you.
Yeah, it was really good.
Thank you for your questions. And like we said, happy to provide additional information as needed.
You
Kim,
all.
thanks for being on today.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you, Kim.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Take care.
Take care, everyone.
Here.